Welcome to the Immeasurable podcast at the Krishnamurti Center in Ojai, California. This series reflects upon Krishnamurti's work and how it directly impacts the listener. The invitation is to inquire together into the fundamental nature of our existence.
So my name is Jaap Sluijter. I'm the director here of the Krishnamurti Foundation. And next to me is Leah Luong. And she is doing marketing and writing, but also dialoguing here with us. We're here in Pine Cottage. Actually not too far from you. I think if we open the window, we could almost shout at you.
Uh-huh.
For the people who listen to this, we're here with Byron Katie. And Katie is, of course, a well-known author and the inventor or creator of the work, a radical questioning system. And maybe for Katie, for you to know also, Leah and I have been doing sessions with the work on various occasions.
Okay.
So we're familiar with that. And also we read your book, or several books and bits and pieces. So we're somewhat familiar and also watch some of your videos. So if I may, I would like to start somewhat ambitious in the sense of. We sent you a book, and the title of the book is Unconditionally Free. I don't know if you've seen the book, but that's
gorgeous. I hope you received my thank you.
Oh, great! So I'm sure that will be at the office. But thank you. And the title is somewhat unusual because it's unconditionally free, and it comes from a longer talk that Krishnamurti gave in 1929, where he said, "My purpose is to set mankind or humanity unconditionally free. To set humanity unconditionally free," And of course, that is like a very weird statement to make for a human being. And but I was just wondering, also you with your work and the work we do as a foundation, how do you relate to that? You know.
Well, I see. If I put it here, which is
yes.
the only place I can put it, my job is to complete it. What did he say? Unconditionally set the world free.
Yes,
well,
correct.
That is my job. And that is the job of every apparent human being, because we're not free, or I can say I'm not free until I set you free. If I put a condition on anything you say or do, then I am not free.
Yeah.
So of course it's my job. If let's say, if we look at happiness, even though it can sound like a frivolous word, and we just call that balance, happiness as balance, not for or against. In the center, that balance for me is gratitude. So I get to see how you live, what you say, what you do, and grow from that, as opposed to put a condition on it, which would might sound like a criticism or the idea that I am wiser, no more, any of that. That is a condition, even though we may not understand it to be a condition. However, it is. Yeah. So it really leaves us as listeners, as witnesses, or it leaves me as a witness. Yeah. And what I witness is nothing short of beautiful, nothing short of perfection. And that is a very open mind. And as I would say it in my language, a very questioned mind. Like if I thought I knew more than you or wiser, any of it, then I would definitely need to question it, because I'm out of balance. And we all feel that, within ourselves. So take care of it is my job.
Yeah, and I like that, and somehow because the title of your best known book, at least the book that I know well, is "Loving What Is." But I was wondering, in the spiritual world, you can of course say, or loving what is, and so you're miserable, and somebody comes along and tells me, yeah, love what is. So, but that can also be translated as, okay, you have to like what is. But I'm sure that's not what you mean. But it would actually be interesting to hear from your mouth. What do you? I mean, if you're in desperate pain, in fear, in anxiety, and in all kinds of suffering, what does it then mean to love what is, which would not be suddenly suppressing or denying or controlling or putting some kind of romantic story on top of myself, right?
Well, in that book, Loving What Is the body of inquiry, as I lay it out. So if I don't love what is, it brings me back to those conditions that I myself am holding. So I have to question what I'm thinking and believing about you before I can understand you. And that is loving what is you, what is me, my thoughts about you. So it is that my job is to love unconditionally everyone and everything that, as you've quoted from Krishnamurti. Yeah.
And
so I can't, if I'm not connected with you, that's on me, not you. It has to be what I'm thinking. I myself am thinking and believing. So identify that condition and I question it.
And what if you're just so, attached and stuck to your conditions? I mean, have you ever been in that space where you go, I would really like to be free from this suffering, but I just can't. I'm just so stuck on it.
Well, I would have to identify what I'm thinking and believing and question the thoughts I was thinking and believing. And then if I'm stuck, then I would just open my mind again. This body of work, this inquiry it's an exercise in stillness. So I need to sit in that. And as I question what I'm believing and witness the wisdom that meets the questions, and only if I'm open, which costs us our identity. So this is not an easy ask, but it's not an easy ask. So I don't think I've ever asked anyone to do the work.
But it's interesting because I read your story and you're saying, okay, and till 1986 you were suffering in various ways as you described it.
Yeah, I was in the position that Leah, you were alluding to. I was impenetrable. If someone told me I was wrong, then obviously they were wrong. And if they insisted, deserved the punishment. And it could be as simple as just giving them the look.
Right.
Not the works, but the look.
Yeah, there's the works and the look.
So I'm wondering, Katie, I find it curious that, you're at this point of holding on to your suffering so fervently, and it seems like insight or something happened, something came in, and then the work came about. And can you go into that a little more? Because I'm very curious about what insight is and what that means.
And I wasn't holding on to my suffering intentionally because I had not at that point realized the cause of my suffering. I thought it was the world and the people in it and the situation and, something you said and you did. I was just convinced you were the cause of my suffering. So what actually happened is one day as I lay sleeping on the floor, just, sleeping through the night on the floor, a bug crawled over my foot. Actually, it was a cockroach crawled over my ankle. And I opened my eyes. It woke me up. It's hard to say at that point. Well, it's not true to say at that point. It woke me up. Before the ego could fill in the space of that instant thing, the bug crawled over. I opened my eyes. Before the ego could fill in the space, I saw what created not only my suffering, the suffering of all, but the cause of everything beyond object. And so that's just a step away from thing. And in that, the first sound was laughter, and in hindsight, it was there was no way I could say it was my laughter, and yet it was I just got the joke. and then at that point, in hindsight, I could say the experience was it stood up, it walked without direction into a bathroom, it looked into a mirror that was above the sink on the wall for no reason, no plan, looked into the mirror, and what looked back was as though it imprinted. So it was like world, no world, I, not I. And so I am, you might say, and there's nothing personal in that. One can always look to themselves. But I am not that, not that, not that, not that. So, we could say I at that point, which it's still all these years later, over 30 years, I haven't spoken an I to my mind that was honest. So I came out a liar, just to speak as a lie, until I discovered that I have never spoken. Meaning, if you just heard me say the word meaning, then I'm an illusion. So I am something, and that I, not personal, to be that is either remembered or anticipated. So it allowed me to speak. And what speaks is not personal. It's an experience.
And would you mind if we go back to that moment before that happened, before the cockroach crawled on your leg? So one way of looking at it would be, okay, you were suffering, and that suffering caused you some kind of a relationship with a discontinuity in that. Or did you do something that you say, hey, I was doing this, and therefore this discontinuity created?
No,
or did something happen?
It was that
you that I'm just trying to go a little bit, trying to get focused on the anatomy. Was there something happening? Okay, you were suffering, you were maybe questioning and arguing and this and that, but was something happening at the same time with you or through you that brought about this? That it's not so much like, like my friend, he says he had some experiences, and he said, okay, in the end, the door opens from the other side. He says the door, and I was just, so I'm just curious, because is there a key? Is there some kind of thing to be understood of what was happening? Because for most people, when they're in the state of being anger and perceiving the world as everybody is doing this to me, they would just, you might solve one particular anger, but the next one is lined up already. You know what I mean? But for you, you're saying there was a discontinuity, and I'm really curious. So what took place? And what caused it? Was there causality? Or was it just the meteorite struck and you were just by luck in the right place and that's all? You know what I mean?
The mind simply did not have enough time to control. In the absence of mind, there was nothing. And then there was a window in the room. And as I lay on the floor in that don't know mind, not I mind, the ego, no time to identify, I saw out the window and there was no window. And then the ego stepped in and there was a window. So I experienced the separation, how the world separates, it appears to be separate. A sky, a tree, a cloud. And I saw the ego naming this. None of it was personal. So I saw how what we, it's the only way I can say it, like what appeared to be something was nothing until it was named. And it's like fusion. It became a thing to mind. And that was not personal. A thing to mind. There is something that's not valid until you name it. And that combination creates the illusion of something. And that's and you can't make something out of nothing. So that was the laughter. It was a kind of falling in love with this incredible opportunity. I call it like Earth School. That came later as I worked with people.
If I may, but I'm just curious because it will help me to understand. So was anything precluding that? Was anything happening beforehand that you say that was significant? Or was it more like the light came through, nothing of the suffering or all the work or the things that you did beforehand caused this? It was, like that's how the dice fell at that moment, and that's how it happened. Yeah.
It would be like if you woke, you go to bed at night, the next morning you wake up, there is no you waking up. But the ego fills that space. I am awake. I am late for work. I need to brush my teeth. I want, I need, I should, I shouldn't. That's the
mental pictures.
And so we think we need that to go to the bathroom, to brush our teeth. And so and there's no identification in I because it's singular. So I am late for work. And then we see an image, this false illusion in our head of our workplace, of our day. And as we watch that, we can be depressed depending on what we're believing onto those images. And we're not doing it. It's just there. And we're asleep to the dream. So everyone has the experience I have on the floor 24/7 in time in Earth School.
Yeah, but I would, if I read your work, your body of inquiry, it looks like you're somehow saying, well, you came upon it. And I still don't know how you came up, but it happened. How it happened, we don't know.
Well, everyone has opportunity to be on the floor. It's like I am. Is it true?
Yeah.
How do I react as I wake up and believe the thought? Like,
Yes.
I can see the images. I don't do war with anything. That also is without condition.
Yeah.
I'm awake to what is and what isn't, and I'm still waiting for what is.
Yeah. I mean, I like, in one of the discussions, in the archives, we have Krishnamurti talking about, in the past, in 100 years ago, it took 3 months to come from England to America. He said, but now you can take a jet fighter and you're there in an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
And but they would criticize him, and there was a group of people discussing with Krishnamurti, and they would say, well, but Krishnamurti, you're a freak of nature, but how about us? And he said, no. He said, it's now possible for everybody. And it doesn't take time. And he's not a freak of nature. So I'm somehow putting the question back to you. Are you a freak of nature? So that's why it happens. Or is this potentiality where the self-referential loop in our brain, where that sometimes there's a discontinuity there, or there's a light breaks through, that's possible? Or is there anything that needs to be done beforehand? And I'm saying that because you have these exercises, the work. Do you somehow implying or suggesting by doing the work diligently, it will have success or something like that? I don't think you think that, but it's just, I would like you to clarify that more. Yeah.
Inquiry isn't for everyone. It's just it's just how I share my experience.
Yeah.
I lived in a little desert town when the work found me, and there's no rhyme or reason. I was agoraphobic for years, so there's no rhyme or reason how anyone would ever contact me, and yet they began to call from everywhere. And for agoraphobic, I wouldn't even talk to people, just my family, where I felt safe with that. But news did travel, and when people would call me, they would say, what is it? And I might say, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're welcome to see for yourself. And because I thought maybe it would, and someone would say, can I come live with you? And I'd say, of course. And they would fly in from anywhere, and literally began to live with me in my house. I thought it might be the wall. All I knew was that they wanted it, and that whatever it was, everyone was welcome to. It's not mine. It can't be on. I thought, well, maybe it's the water that they're talking about. Maybe it's the weather they're talking about. Maybe it's something in the air. Maybe, no idea, but understanding that if I had it, it belonged to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hear them say things like, I want, and I need, and I might do something, say, I don't want, all these phrases just narrowed down to like 6 things on the worksheet that I would hear. From I want, I need, I should, you shouldn't. I don't ever want to. And that's it. Those 6 questions on the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And then to question those, meditating in the situation that you have described within the 6. And question people, because I understood it's nothing I could give them. And that I'll say now that it's within them, but I only knew equality. Just everyone's in me. They're not outside. And so those pieces of me, those unenlightened pieces of me that ask, it was just responding to what I might say is my own self. Like, you're in me. You can never be outside of me. So the world, this inquiry is an invitation to those with open minds to do their own work and free their own world, even though they live in my world. There is nothing I can do to change their world. Nothing I can do to change their world. That is like telling a cell in your own body what to do, like trying to dictate something that's impossible to. So, but without condition, those people that come to mind, that's my world. And if I am in opposition, and what was it? Your quote from Krishnamurti, I meet them with condition. That's an internal experience. There's nothing outside of me. I still am alone if I were something, and that can never be.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question. I'm wondering if, so you do the work, you ask yourself these questions, and there's this opening that's created and a different way to experience that feels freer and more loving. And is that, after that happens, is there a total transformation? Do you keep going with the work? And so what's going on when this is happening inside of ourselves, and what does that mean for the people around us?
Well, I can speak for myself, and I don't know that I really understood your question, Leah, but
it was kind of like three in one.
Oh.
But I think the main part of it was
if I am playing off of one thread, I may have heard correctly. One question I may have heard correctly. Is when I am working with someone, like there is an hour, 3 days a week that I work with people on Zoom. Every time I do the work, and that's virtual reality, like right here, where, it's pretty obvious we're virtual, but the world is virtual. I am virtual. It's like I can see, I move my hand like this. It's in the past. It's either remembered or anticipated. That's all of me that I'm ever going to see. But let's say I'm working with someone on Zoom, and I understand it's virtual. And I say that supporting other people, like supporting them. You get it? We're virtual, and so are you. And anyway, I love this internet world. So every time I work with them, with that person, anyone, mind is infinite. So not personal, I continue to expand. That's the unlimited. And there's nothing personal in it. So that virtual world continues to enlighten me. So we have virtual from here, where I'm pointing to my head, and then we have virtual on the screen. And then I'm thinking of my children right now, and they're virtual. If they're standing in the room, I can only see them in the past. If we're standing face to face, I can only see them in the past, which is to say, I see that image. All I've ever met of even my children, it's an illusion. Now, if I love, I'm being true to my nature. So everything is we could say, just sitting in the divine, being that without opposite. And not, can't have that either. Infinite mind.
Is it
It's
possible
not
to be,
object and can never be.
is it possible to be in that mind all the time?
Well, I leave that to you. And what I can say is yes, to you and to me. Life's an illusion. We don't have to be aware of it. Nonetheless, it's an illusion. And this, inquiry clearly shows that if someone brings it into their practice, inquiry doesn't require that we give up any practice that is supportive to one's quest to freedom, their trip to freedom, and in this earth school. So all the religions and the ways, that's the trip. So if one's working for you, there's nothing that inquiry cannot enhance. It sets us freer to do the work that touches our heart, which can be a religion or just service to others, or psychology, therapy. There's nothing that that inquiry would object to. Inquiry is not an objection.
And how then do you differentiate between when you read the body of Krishnamurti's work? There's one thing that stands out that he says, let's be clear. He says, well, it's not about calming the suffering, but it's somehow ending suffering, right? He really makes that distinction. And he says, be very careful that time is the enemy of man, right? So he would say, well, I mean, as soon as you accept, I'm going to improve this and then I'm going to improve that. And then if you then buy into a belief that you gradually, have to break down the various constructs, the whole train of thoughts that we have, full of thoughts that we have stored in our mind. So how do you differentiate? If you would somehow could expand on that, and if you somehow agree with that, if not, that's also fine. But would you? How do you address that aspect of time and not accepting gradualness, right? But so.
Well, what was your quote? Krishnamurti said that time is the enemy of man.
Yes, time.
Yes,
yeah.
and he chose the word enemy, and it's strong, and leaves us to contemplate that. So time is an illusion. That's how he could afford to say it's the enemy of man, and it's nothing. But pure imagination, like I see me at breakfast this morning, but that's not me. And I see me at dinner tonight. Well, that's not me. That's an illusion. That is the me in my head. So now there are three me's. The one at breakfast, the one at dinner, the one talking to you now. Now, the one that said talking to you now. There's four Byron Katies. Okay. So it's not an enemy. It just is what we call the ego. It is mind attempting to be something, to be object. Now, the ego can never live. It doesn't exist. So we saw with the four Katies. So if I drop those, if I ask the question, breakfast, dinner, with my children, my morning walk, all those Katies go on. How many? So who would I be without that? That's the fourth question. But the illusion of, so that is how time, that's the illusion of time.
I was specifically thinking I see you lying on the floor waking up because a cockroach crawls on your feet, and somehow there was the discontinuity of time, right? And it seems to be that's the most important thing. And now, how do you address within your work? Because when I can see the process and also doing it, I could believe like, hey, I'm going to now address my anger issues, and then I'm going to address my jealousy issues, and now I'm going to address the hate with my mother, and then with my brother, and then So how do you, if you address? I mean, if you're not, that's also. But how do you look at that? How do you take the progression? How you shine a light on that? Let me put it that way.
I just invite people to identify what they're thinking and believing in any situation. And then they begin to notice at some point that time's an illusion, that they are an illusion. And so we could say what Krishnamurti says, time is the enemy of man. It's simply that it's the enemy of man because it creates what isn't, the illusion of man. So I think they use a strong word again to give us pause to ponder that statement. So, which I can appreciate.
Yeah. I'm somehow understanding from what you're saying is that you're saying, well, in this moment, in this particular illusion or this particular suffering, the whole thing is encapsulated. Like everything is there. You know what I mean? So it can be seen in its fullness. Now, I mean.
Which anyone that sits in the questions can clearly see over time or instantly that it's a hopeless chase.
It's a hopeless chase. Leah, you want to ask something about negation, right? Do you want to bring that out, or?
Yeah, if we have time.
Yeah, I think let's ask if it's okay to ask one more question.
Yes, and I would say the ego. It's a hopeless chase for the ego, and which anyone that identifies would admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Krishnamurti has a quote about negation that reminds me a lot about the work. He says, we posit the positive and then get caught in the negative. One must begin with doubt, completely doubting. Then you end up with certainty. But if you start with certainty, then you end up in uncertainty and chaos. So in negation, the positive is born. And that really reminded me of the questions, the work, because it seems like that this is a call for challenging these mental pictures that are coming up and what we call time and concept. And
very good.
Yeah. And so I think what I really want to know is just how you see that process of distillation and taking our illusions and challenging them and meeting them. And I'm not really sure if that's a question, but I just kind of saw a link there.
It really comes to bear when we witness how we react when we believe the thought, and how often there's that word that Krishnamurti used that you began with, what was the word?
Was it certainty?
Unconditionally free.
Yeah. How do we react when we believe the thought? It shows we're invested in what we're thinking and believing, those past future illusions that go on in our head. And we say and do things that cause guilt, and that's built in because it is a no. And no one can escape that. If I say or do anything that would harm you or me, there's a guilt to it. It doesn't matter how the mind justifies the action. There's a guilt to it. And so that would be a worksheet, a judge and neighbor worksheet.
And what is the origin of that guilt? What is that? Why is the brain organized that way that it brings
My
that up?
nature is to love unconditionally.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So anything in opposition to that is going to be, as Krishnamurti says, what you're up against, what you're up. It's gonna bounce back and remind you you have a little work to do.
So you're somehow you're saying or implying that we know that this is that we're unconditionally loving.
So that is the one thing we have no control over. It's the only thing that can't be controlled, and that's our true nature, which is, we have a lot of names for, like kindness, love, real, authentic, are all words for the immovable. So if anything that opposes that we think, say, feel, or do, is up for inquiry, because what opposes it is the illusion, like the just false identity.
And could you elaborate? Because I feel that is really, for me, really a significant point. That on one hand we seem to be completely absorbed in the mental process, and at the same time you're saying, well, there is something else present also, which but you maybe forgot or you don't look at it.
Well, it's the only thing present.
And yes, and
it's the only thing, if we're going to call it a thing.
No, yeah, and I guess we touch upon it when the sunlight sometimes comes into the room, or on a leaf or something, or you walk. Live in Ojai. You look at the mountains and the clouds are there. That is when you look back, or if I look at my childhood, those are the moments that are most strongest, right? Where that is somehow being present. But it is there more? Is there more you can say about that? Is there? What is your evidence? If I may say it like hard, what is your evidence?
Well, I think you pointed to it in a beautiful way. Those are your those feel treasured when you're, as we say, remembering, and there are those times when we're content, we're not at war, we're pleased, we're quiet, not at war with anyone or anything. We're absorbed, and it's it's something you can sit in and see, what was absent there, that when you are holding it doesn't leave you content, and then that would belong on paper. The absence of suffering, or those sweet memories, sitting on a riverbank and watching the current move the leaf in the water as it passes by.
Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah, that's a strong to hear that. Yeah,
there's very few judgment there. I call it first generation thinking, like leaf, water, cloud, and there are no definitions there. So it's no definitions, no oppositions. It's
more of an experience.
An experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I'm late for dinner, and what will they think? And nothing has changed at all, other than this illusion. I saw myself late. I saw them. They're waiting for me in the diner. It's all an illusion.
Yeah.
Even the leaf in the water and the current is past.
But
it's remembered or anticipated.
Yeah. But wouldn't you say that, like, okay, you're late for dinner, you feel guilty, you feel pressured, you feel anxious, you feel whatever you feel, that has a place. It happens. And, I mean, it has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? It happens to you or something.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, that can only be experienced in, you could take like a snapshot picture of when you were feeling that guilt and see what was really going on. And it's as peaceful as you as a child looking at but when it's going on, you see them at the table, that's an illusion. You see them waiting for you, that's an illusion. You see they're going to be upset with you, that's an illusion. And then you see you in the past when you knew to go and you didn't, and now you're feeling guilty, and you should have this and you could have that, and all the time nothing's going on in that particular moment. Nothing other than all those yous.
Yeah.
All those thens, all an illusion. And who would you be without it? And you're back to being that young child that had those moments of being in touch with himself more than he is at the time he's looking back.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, one of the things that stood out from the work the book that I read, that you, Loving What Is, I was not thinking, I was being thought. I thought it was quite a remarkable line when I read that.
Yeah, it would be very arrogant to believe I'm the thinker.
Because you would be arrogant because,
well, it's claiming something I did nothing for.
Yeah, that you had the power to bring everything together to produce that thought.
Yeah, I'm being thought, and when I am, let's say I'm caught in that trance, then I'm going to feel emotions like we've been discussing, like guilt and even happiness, but that's closer to my nature.
I feel that we're conditioned to give ourselves credit for the thought, give ourselves credit for our accomplishments and the things that we've done.
Yeah, like, oh, I forgot, I'm so sorry. I'm taking credit for something that I could take another look at.
Thank you, Katie. I think I personally feel I would have hundreds of more questions, but I also want to respect time and also say that it was really very enjoyable, insightful, and my gratitude for.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, and I enjoyed it as well. So with that, thank you for the invitation and our time together, and stay well.
Stay well.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.